Okay, perfect. I think we'll get started. We've got quite a lot of people with us now, so we will get going. So my name is Sarah. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for MCG Talent. And as I mentioned, I'm joined here by a panel of experts in PR and communications here today who are about to introduce themselves. So first off, we have Justin McGuire, CEO of MCG Talent. Hello, Justin. We're very happy to have you on here with us today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sarah. I'm super excited to be here today, especially with John and Libina.
Yep, perfect. Thanks so much, Justin. We've also got Libina with us here today, who is Associate HR Director at APCO MENA. Hello, Libina. Give us a short introduction to yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I'm Libina, the Associate HR Director at APCO Worldwide in Dubai. With over a decade of experience in HR field, my role revolves not just around talent management, but it also revolves around crafting strategies that sort of aligns with our evolving needs of our clients these days, and making sure that we are prepping our employees not just for today, but also to make sure that they're able to sort of cater to the needs of our client for tomorrow, particularly in a fast-paced environment like PR and comms.
Great, thanks, Libina. We also have John Barber with us, who's VP of Marketing and Communications at TECOM Group. Hi, John. Can you please introduce yourself to everyone?
Hey, Sarah. Good afternoon, panelists and guests. Good to see you. I'm John Barber, VP of Marketing, as you say, here at TECOM Group. Been in the region for getting on close to 20 years now for my sins. Also Vice Chair of the Middle East PR Association, MEPRA, as well.
Great, thank you. We also have with us today Laura, who's part of our MCG Talent team. She is going to be looking after you guys in the chat section today. So all of the questions that you have for our panel, she'll be keeping an eye on them, and she will be asking those difficult questions that you might have. Laura, do you mind just going through the housekeeping rules with everyone so that they know what they're doing and know what to expect today?
Absolutely. So just a bit of housekeeping, as Sarah said. If you do have to dash off at any point, don't worry. A recording will be available afterwards for all registrants. If you do stay with us on the live, you will be able to ask us questions in real time using the chat function. And to do that, if you wiggle your mouse over the chat at the bottom of the screen, click it, and you can pop your questions in there at any point during the webinar. Questions will be completely anonymous, so only myself and the panelists will see them, so don't be shy, get them in, and we're going to answer as many questions as possible. So to get us used to using that chat function, I'm going to begin by asking you a question, and you can pop your answers in, so we're going to do it backwards to start with. So my question for you as the audience is, what is the most noticeable trend you've seen in the PR and comms industry this year? Whilst those answers are coming in, Sarah is going to cover the agenda.
So get those answers over to Laura and we will come back to them very shortly. But in the meantime, while you're getting those answers in, I'll just give a bit of a brief overview of what we're going to be speaking about today. So first of all, I'm going to be speaking to our panel about trends that they've saw in 2024 so far, and then what they anticipate going into 2025. We're also going to be talking about technology, and the big main part of that is AI. It seems to be the two letters on everyone's lips right now, and we have a lot of questions and a lot of discussion to be had on AI. And then we will also finish up by talking about talent. So how do you get a job in the Middle East? What kind of talent's in really high demand? What's happening in the Saudi talent market, what's happening in the UAE talent market? We'll be covering a bunch of stuff on talent. So that will be the final section. Then it's over to all of our attendees for today to ask any questions that they have. We'll also take short breaks throughout to get to some of those questions as well. So keep those questions coming in throughout the whole webinar. Laura, what's the sentiment from the chat?
Yes, so the overall consensus, I suppose, is a few people have mentioned AI, the introduction of AI tools, and how organizations are getting more and more involved in making them part of the team and part of daily operations. And something super interesting as well, that people are craving more face-to-face time, which I think we're going to touch upon as well. More and more people are moving back to kind of physical hybrid events, because after COVID, everything went quite virtual. So super interesting. Another few comments about AI there as well.
Perfect. All things that we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so without any further ado, we'll get ahead with our agenda for today and start talking about all of those things. So, as I mentioned, we're going to start by talking about trends. John, I'm going to come to you with our first question as our PR and comms practitioner and expert. What trends have really stood out to you in 2024 within the PR and comms space in the Middle East?
Well, I'm afraid I've got nothing more original to add. Like you say, it's a two-letter word and it's AI. If 2023 was the year of sustainability and ESG and COP being here in the UAE and such a huge focus on that, this year it's been the headline artificial intelligence. I think we'll get into the discussion a little bit later on, and Laura touched on it. But I think the conversations around the one note deeper than AI is, so how are we using it? How can this benefit the comms industry? How is it a threat to the comms industry? How it will be embraced and used transparently and authentically. It's not something that's going away. We've got to embrace it. But I think the questions around how do we use data and how do we use AI to benefit our stakeholders and our audiences is key critical coming into the second half of the year.
Yeah. Very interesting point. I think we're going to, as you said, dig into that a lot deeper in the coming AI section. So excited to hear everyone's views on that. And from a recruitment standpoint, Justin, what trends have you seen this year so far?
So interestingly, PR and comms has become a real anchor sector for our business. I think it accumulates about 50% of our revenue so far this year. So we have seen a real consistent, steady growth in that market. If I'm honest with you, ever since COVID, I really saw the resilience. I'd seen the resilience of the PR and comms sector in other downturns, but my gosh, was it evident when COVID kicked in that really it was where that PR and comms and technology were really our anchor sectors. And whilst tech's, wavered a little bit, PR has continued to go from strength to strength. And in the Middle East, especially, I haven't seen that slowing down. So I'm not seeing any demand coming through across the board from hiring managers wanting to get specific AI users into their business. I think what we're still seeing is the traditional PR and comm skills heavily in demand, those being media relations, excellent writing skills, if it's leadership, running a team, good client management skills. So those sort of anchor skills are still very much being required. If anything, there's probably a premium right now in the Middle East for Arabic skills and for regional knowledge. Why? Well, I think anyone that sort of drives in Dubai right now or Abu Dhabi or even Riyadh will tell you the roads have got a little bit more busy. So there's lots of people here. There's lots of people looking for jobs. There's lots of people coming here looking for work. So regional experience has become a premium. There is it's a very much a client-driven market in many areas, I feel, except for those within heavily in demand skills being Arabic, regional knowledge, where really we're seeing heavy demand. I would be silly not to add that we're seeing a real surge in demand for digital teams being developed within PR and comms companies. And I'm not talking about just social teams. I'm actually talking about, digital teams that would rival a traditional integrated ad agency. We're seeing creative built up within a comms department. We're seeing search, social, media planning, buying, all those functions that perhaps might not typically be seen in PR and comms companies. We're seeing those being built out now. And that's a trend I see. I've started a couple of years ago, and I'm seeing momentum continue to go through. In terms of geographies, Dubai, Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Doha, that's our big four in terms of where we get most of our customers and our candidates from as well. Candidates place, sorry. So there you go, a little bit of an insight into where our recruitment trends are.
Perfect. Thank you, Justin. And Libina, I want to come to you now. What trends have you seen this year so far?
I think one of the biggest trends that I've noticed personally is how much technology, especially AI, has become part of everyday work in PR and communications. And I think it's really streamlined so many processes, whether it's content creation or media monitoring. But beyond that, there's also strong push towards sustainability and corporate social responsibility. And yes, these are not buzzwords anymore. They are really, really shaping how brands are perceived and how we approach public relations. Now, I completely echo Justin's thoughts on how we look at PR today. I mean, when I joined APCO, the landscape was completely different. So we had a traditional PR division and then we had the digital section. But I think in 2018, we sort of made that integration. We brought people together. So we started training a traditional PR candidate about how to do, let's say, a digital calendar. How do you do a social media post, and vice versa. Digital team got trained on how do you do press releases. Let me teach you this. So we sort of started the integration process earlier on. So effective 2020, 2018, I think we all came to a space where we knew where we wanted to head to. So we always ensured that we were ahead of the game even then. So I'm glad, Justin, you brought that up. But yes, these are the current trends that I personally witnessed.
Great, thanks, Libina. Some great insight there. Just to kind of move on a little bit to what we see in the rest of this year and then potentially moving into 2025. John, to come back to you, what do you kind of foresee will be quite prevalent in the rest of this year and then potentially in 2025 as well?
I mean, traditionally, we always end the year strong here in the UAE. The weather gets better. All the event season starts kicking in from next month onwards through until sort of the March time. So we're going to see a lot of people in town and a busy end of the year that we traditionally do. I think with specific trends for this year, and it's been a path that's started during COVID and has become more prevalent since, is a reduction on above the line spend, mass market, mass communications, just get out there with a singular message. And data and AI now, more than ever, has allowed us to have singular conversations and have much more singular impact with the consumer, with the stakeholder, whoever that is, whether that's B2C, FMCG, B2G, B2B. You're able now to have more of that one-on-one conversation. The risk is that we over-rely on AI and it becomes automatic and it becomes robotic and you lose the personal touch, but used in the right way. We have the tools now, whether that's chat via WhatsApp, through to customer care, whether that's the use of AI learnings for getting more tailored responses based on data inputs. We can have much more clear, singular one-on-one impactful conversations with our stakeholder than we've ever been able to have before. And I think people are trying to find their feet now into how do we use this? Is it just called ChatGPT to write my mundane emails for me? Or can we utilize this in a way that benefits both the business and the receiver, the consumer, the stakeholder? And I think by the time we get through the end of the year and into next year, I think there'll be much more clarity and understanding. We'll have found our feet on how best to use technology to have those direct conversations.
Yeah. AI, right? It seems to be the biggest topic right now, and I can even see in our kind of chat function as well that we've got a lot of questions around it. So excited to get to that section. Just before we move on to that, Libina, Justin, do you have anything that you would like to add to kind of trends that you see towards the end of this year and potentially into next year?
Libina, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, Justin, thank you. I think as we head towards the end of 2024, I think we're going to be seeing AI becoming even more integrated into our, daily activities that we do. And with new and sophisticated tools that comes into play literally every day, we're also likely to see that there's going to be a stronger emphasis on very personalized communication strategies. And I think as clients obviously are looking at content that really speaks to their individual values and their audiences, right? Now, for instance, at APCO, we have developed something called as Margie. We named it after our owner and chairman, Marjorie Krause. It's our AI-driven platform, and which is a big and huge step towards adaptive intelligence. Now, Margie is designed to sort of think, learn and grow like a professional colleague. It sort of helps us a little bit, in terms of how we integrate AI, but also at the same time making it more personable. So I feel like we are getting into an era where we would use AI, but I would still say not to lose the personal touch. And hence why we decided to come up with this product called Margie, which is very, very interesting. Again, it's work in progress.
Wow, I think everyone's probably thinking that they would like to have a Margie in their office. Justin, I'll come to you.
Trends. So I believe what we're going to see from an agency perspective, I think the market is going to continue to become a bit more competitive. I think as the rest of the world is still looking, I think all eyes are on the Middle East right now. I certainly feel that from just last week, we had 2 new companies wanting to launch into the region that we met with, and we took briefs from about getting a launch team on the ground here. I think you're going to see increasing amounts of agency brands looking to set up in Dubai. Saudi's going to take a bit longer because the legislation and paperwork there just take longer. So I think Dubai market and agency world is going to heat up. What I'm also seeing a trend of, and I think AI might have something to do with this, is that clients themselves, and perhaps John, you could touch on this one as well, is I think AIs are making quite a few clients potentially think that they can do some things themselves. So we are also seeing quite a number of our mandates coming through now to build out in-house teams. More so, we've always had a governmental and a corporate function as part of our offering, but most of our clients have really been in the customer and consultancy world. I'm seeing a trend this year that we're getting more clients in the corporate and government space. Obviously, that's from our business perspective, but I suspect AI has got something to do with that. So that's something that we're seeing happen as well. So more competition agency land, development of clients, building out their in-house function, which is quite interesting. And of course, I think what we're going to probably see down the track from a skill set demand is that knowledge of AI tools and systems, but we're not getting those right now. So I would be lying if I told you we're getting mandates, people are asking for that. But given the nature of the beast and where it's going, I expect that to come.
Perfect. I think that leads us on very nicely to start our AI section. So I think the first question, which I think sets the scene quite well for the rest of the questions that we have around AI, how much of an impact has AI already made on the PR and comms industry? And is there any examples that anyone can give, I guess, on instances where they're seeing it being used quite widely and it's now kind of fully integrated within your business? John, I think if we can start with your take on it.
Let me first of all come back on one of the comments that Justin made a moment ago about the increase in recruitment in-house. I think there's an element of truth in that. I think that's right. But I think to give almost the agency answer is what we in-house people now need from an agency is not, please write me a 500-word press release and get it to me by 3 o'clock so I can get it out tomorrow. It's strategic advice. When you're in-house, you're tunnel visioned, you've got your head down, and you're often really only focused on your own company and a small set of competitors stroke peers. What you need from an agency is big picture. What's going on in the industry? What's going on out there that I need to be aware of? Where can I tap into certain conversations? You're not going to get that from AI or, anyone else on the inside. You've got to get that external perspective coming in to keep you relevant and keep a check on sort of where your messaging is going. So while there will be an increase, and there has been an increase, I think, of in-house capacity, there is huge reliance in-house on agency support, but at that strategic level, not just as extra bodies, if you like. When we talk about AI being disrupted, it's massively disruptive, but at the moment, I think it's been disruptive with the chattering classes. We're talking about it, we're trying to work it out. We haven't really set on exactly how we can embed it into marketing and communications to better how we provide for our businesses and our clients. As I said earlier, I'm also vice chair of the Middle East PR Association, and what we tried to do there as an industry was put together some guidelines and best practices, certainly in around transparency and ethics and the use of AI, which I think we'll go into in more detail in a little bit. And a plug for that, it's on the homepage right now. It's free to download. You don't need to sign up. We're not chasing to collect your data. But if you go onto MEPRA.org, there is an industry-aligned set of 8 guidelines, which I think can help shape how we are transparent about the use of AI. In terms of good practices, no, not yet. I've seen some quirky stuff used to sort of say it's images generated by AI, or, you know, 2 companies having conversations with each other, or AI says this. Quirky, fun ways of implementation. Literally last day today for the submissions for the MEPRA Awards, by the way. That's 2 plugs in one answer. And one of the new categories is the best use of AI. So when we get to the awards in November, let's look at what comes in. Last comment on this before I hand over to my colleagues and panelists is that we've sort of got to get a sense of whether we can use AI. I know there was reluctance inside my own organization in those early days, where people almost are shy to say they use AI, or they're using it secretly on their desktop and they don't know if it's cool and it's okay to use it, and we're embracing this. There's security concerns within the business about if you're not using an enterprise solution for some of these, of how that documentation, particularly like for us at TECOM as a listed entity on the financial markets, what is happening to that data that is being used. And same from agency. Now, agency will say, yes, we have used AI to help and support us in this production of this document or this presentation. 3 or 4 months ago, if I would have asked straight up and down in a meeting, have you used AI to generate this? There was sort of a reluctance. We didn't quite know where we had to position ourselves on saying yes or no or maybe, because it felt like it was cheating to some extent. And we had to find a way of explaining how we can use this to benefit what we're doing, and people are still a little bit scared to some extent to actually say that we're using and embracing this. So I'd be interested to know from the other panelists, how open are we about, yes, we use AI to write this for us, filter this down for us, interpret this for us, whatever it would be.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we've got a lot of people in our chat function who are resonating with a lot of those things that you've just said, John. We've just had a ton of messages saying that they completely agree with everything that you've said there. So I'll come to Libina next to kind of get your take on it.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. I know that AI has sort of transformed PR and comms in a very big way. Some of the examples that I can give you, real-time examples, is we're now using AI-powered tools to analyze huge data sets, right? Like John mentioned, that I need agencies to come back and give us insights, tell us a little bit more about things that we don't know of already. And this sort of really helps us. Now, I always tell people that AI is not going to replace human being. Use AI as an enabler. Use it as a creator, like get creative ideas, get your data analyzed. However, when you're putting it through, like you said, press releases, or even if it's strategic advices, I think strategic advices has to be given by somebody who's a human being as opposed to AI, right? Collect the data from within AI and produce it. Give those advices that clients are really looking forward to. Now, APCO's vision is also slowly sort of moving towards being a strategic advisory firm, and this is where AI comes into picture for us, and it plays a huge role because it really helps us analyze data. Now with Margie, it's the most advanced client servicing tool that we have that sort of integrates data from different places, like let's say financials, like from social media, from client survey, and it sort of puts together into a smart data lake. So that really helps us make the decisions that we would want to make. That really helps us with the advisors that we'd like to provide to our clients. So this is what I have seen, and I think really worked well from an agency side of things.
Great, thank you. Justin, do you have anything to add on to that?
Obviously, I'm here as the guy, the recruiter. So what I'm going to tell you now is where I've seen AI interfere with the recruitment processes in comms, and there is I think a great deal of our clients understandably set candidates tasks to do, and one thing that's been quite evident is that a lot of people are using AI now to complete those tasks, and they're being found out. There's no other way of saying it, you know. So I think one point I want to stress here is be your authentic self, because one thing AI shouldn't do is take people away from being who they genuinely are. And it's the bit that will make you stand out in an interview process. And most people can tell when AI is being used within a presentational task that's sent back. And I'm going to imagine that customers from agencies are going to want to see, authenticity from their particular agency as well. One thing I have heard from a lot of my friends in comms, because I'm an ex-comms guy and I've got a lot of friends in comms, and one thing I've been fascinated by listening to is how AI is helping people create scenarios. For example, those that work within crisis communications now, they're able to predict and analyze what types of crisis might occur, and build a strategy around that, which is fascinating. And I think that's a great way of AI being used in a really effective way. And I think media monitoring and analysis as well, from my conversations with people in an agency landscape, is how pinpoint and accurate AI can be in helping people understand how effective their campaigns have run. And other stuff that I've seen enhance enhance customers' campaigns is the use of chatbots and assistants, and how that's helped tailor campaigns and runs. So I think let's not get focused on written material and copywriting, because I think there's lots of other ways that AI can enhance and work with a business, and in a strategic capacity as well.
Let me just pick up on you, if I may, though, just in just 1 second. You said when people were using AI either for CVs or answering certain tests, you said they've been found out. And that's sort of what I want to explore. So what? The other side of that argument is, should I not be proud to say, I have used AI to be more efficient, to produce something with quality, if used in the right way? And there's still this balance between, is AI cheating, or is AI benefiting us?
Well, what I could say in an interview process is it's very much being seen as being cheating right now. I don't think we've had feedback from anyone that's gone, oh, that's a tremendous use of AI. Well, well done. I honestly think they feel that they haven't got to know who the individual is. And I guess that's been the issue. So at the moment, it is being seen as cheating. I can 100% say that.
I think that leads us very nicely to our next question, actually. So we've spoke a lot about authenticity, about when should you use AI, when shouldn't you use AI. So just to touch on those risks a little bit more, we're in the very early stages. We've looked at this a little bit in some of the reports that we've done, and have had some interesting points raised about things like copyright, bias, some of those potential real negative impacts of using AI. What's the panel's take on that element of AI? John, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I was thinking about this before I came on, and I've been talking to my team about this. For years, it has been possible to take an image of an event, and I'm cutting a ribbon, handshake, some of the most basic sort of communications tactics, and you get the best image through, but the person third on the left is not smiling enough, or you find there's a dirty mark on the wall in the background. You use Photoshop to clean it up. It's been used in the fashion and beauty industry for many years, and at some point audiences felt that it had gone too far, and there was ethical concerns about authenticity and transparent presentation. Now with AI, anyone can do that in about 25 seconds. Before, it was limited to a certain group, certain skill set, whatever, and we had to find out, is it okay to clean up the wall in the background on a photo shoot, but it's not okay to put a person who wasn't there into the image, for example. And we had to find where that gray area was, and find the boundaries to that. Now with AI, we can generate that now. I could generate an image in 10 minutes that shows 500 people on my exhibition stand at GITEX in October, and the event hasn't even happened yet, and it would look very, very, very authentic. 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you could spot it a mile away. Now you can't. Now, ethically, I think we can all agree to do something like that would be very unethical. But where's the line? And we haven't quite found our space yet. So where does that stop? If it's okay to clean up a photograph, but not okay to put 500 people on an exhibition stand, I'm pretty sure we can all agree on those boundaries. Where's the middle boundary? And I think That's why we looked at making these guidelines. And I think we've got to work our way through it as an industry as to where is that ethically okay? Do we need to say on the bottom of every press release, this was supported or helped to be generated by the use of AI? At the start of every presentation, should we say we have utilized AI to help us create this material? People are wary now, and Instagram has already started, and Meta's already started actually putting some tags on images that are uploaded, because they can spot in the metadata and all of this stuff in the back end where imagery particularly was used, AI was used. And is that okay? Is it not okay? And that's where I think we've got to find our space. And that's where the major concern is. The second one, just quickly, is, as I mentioned earlier on the use of your own internal data. So if I'm taking internal confidential data and running it through AI systems, whether that be ChatGPT or the likes, Copilot or whichever, that data could potentially be used in public domain, could get out there if you're not using enterprise versions. So there are some security concerns. I think the ethical concerns probably are the biggest ones to think about at the moment, though.
Yeah. And Libina, I know that you've got a viewpoint on this as well, as we spoke about it previously. So keen to kind of hear what you think on this.
Absolutely. One of the biggest concerns, I think, is the potential bias piece that you have. Like I said, when you are sort of trying to gather data, sometimes I think there are possibilities for it to be unintentionally influenced, and it can influence the narratives that we'd want to derive at, right? There could be cases where AI be like, okay, these are the data collected, and this is what I can produce as AI. But there also has to be a person sitting behind that. What did the client want from us? What was the requirements? And so there's a very, very thin area. Sometimes we could get deviated from the actual achievement that we're looking to sort of achieve using AI. And this is where we really need to start focusing on setting strict ethical guidelines. It is going to be difficult. We're not in that process as yet, but at some point, I feel like we need to get into a space where we really keep a close eye on how we use AI and how we sort of protect our clients as well and the interest. And of course, like John mentioned, the confidentiality, which is super important. And that's where our inbuilt Margie comes into picture, where we've created this within the boundaries of APCO, right? Within a space where we know for a fact that these details are not going to go out, which is why we do not encourage our employees to use ChatGPT. Copilot is okay, but ChatGPT is a big no, because security is number one for us. So we try to integrate and use this within our security system where we know that we're safe. And handling client data is not easy. So we are very, very careful and mindful of how we use it.
Justin, for candidates, is it ethical to use AI in your job search?
Look, I think anyone that's looking for a job in the Middle East right now will probably tell you that's a job in itself, right? So it's a very competitive market. So AI to speed up your understanding of what's on the market, where is there to use it in the job search, I think it makes complete logical sense. And if you do various tools that you can use, utilize them. But here's the thing, and I did a post about this on LinkedIn last week, and it got quite a big response, because what I've noticed is only 30% of people really get jobs through job applications, right? So where does the other 70% come from? And the other 70% comes from recruiters, previous colleagues, networks, friends. And that's the nature of the beast. So you can use AI to sniff out the opportunity, but then use your skills. And in Dubai, especially, particularly if you've been here for a while, or anywhere in the Gulf, I would say you're normally one person removed from someone who knows someone. It's normally the way. So once you understand where an opportunity is, do your best to try and utilize your network to get to that opportunity, because relying on just job applications, at the moment you can apply for a job as easy as you can buy a can of baked beans, online. It's so easy. And actually, what fascinating thing is, and we see this quite a bit, is we have candidates that tell us they don't even realize they've applied to jobs. So we'll talk to them about an opportunity. We'll send them down to a particular business, And the business will go, oh yeah, we know them. They applied like a month ago. And then you go back and say to the candidate, listen, why did you waste our time? You applied for that job a month ago. They've completely forgotten. And that is how easy it is to apply for a job now. People that you're continually being sold to like you are holidays with jobs. And so people just click apply, and they don't even realize it. So that's why I'm saying it's become really hard to decide. The amount of applications we get in the Middle East is just insane. You know, we had to take down a consulting job we had this week. It had 4,400 applicants in 1 week. I mean, that's just wild, right? That's wild. So the best thing I can do, I can go back to is use AI to find the opportunity, use your skills to network and get in front of the right person.
Right. And just to circle back a little bit on kind of the way that AI is being used in PR and comms organizations, I want to just throw this out to everyone on the panel if anyone's got a viewpoint on it. Should there be a single person who's the owner or guardian of how AI is used within an organization? Should it be multiple people? Is there jobs that exist to do that within PR and comms? How is AI being owned within PR and comms businesses at the moment?
I think I could respond to that. I think AI governance is a collective effort. It cannot be just one team, one department sort of should be held responsible for it, in the sense that, yes, of course, you could have the IT team or the AI team taking a lead on it, but I think it's a collective effort, and it has to be everyone, including your starting from account managers to media relations person to every single person in the company, because you are responsible. And this is why we say when you're using AI, use it responsibly, because each of us are going to create an impact, whether it's positive or a negative. So to me, honestly, it lies with everybody in the company. However, of course, there could be leads. There could be people who take lead on it and say, hey, these are the don'ts and these are the do's, right? So we need to make sure that we're responsible enough to use it in places where we tend to use them the most. So I think it's everyone.
Yeah, I think also it comes from the top. It needs some leadership here. Whether we like it or not, people are going to use AI. It's a tool that's available to them. Marketing comms professionals need to be up to speed at all times with latest developments, whatever that happens to be. So I'm not surprised that Justin's not seeing like specific JD roles that describe only AI. It's a bolt-on to a skill set that you should already have as a good communicator, a good practitioner in your field. But I do think there needs to be some guidance from the top when I look at internal businesses from a CEO level down, and not being restrictive, but helping frame up how and where we utilize artificial intelligence to enhance our work. And then I've always argued that marketing and comms should take a leadership position in helping get that out through the organization and creating the right messaging around how and what we use AI for throughout our business, not just within the marketing and comms profession, but how we use it in our industry for creating visas or for generating call center or whatever it so happens to be. And then you've got HR and IT that do a lot of the sort of practical rollout of this across the business.
Yeah. And we kind of spoke about there how we're not seeing too much of an impact on job roles yet when it comes to AI. But if you were to predict any jobs that might be kind of prevalent in the future that are around AI within the PR and comm space, is there any that you wanted to be mystical about it and say you think this might happen in the next couple of years? Is there any areas where you see that it could be used in terms of specific?
I'll take this one, and I can tell you where we're seeing it have the most impact right now. Okay, and we touched on this in a previous webinar we did. That is in the creative world. Okay, where design tools, and John, it's interesting you talked about photography there as well, because AI is being used to, I think traditional advertising integrated agencies used to spend a lot on shoots, used to spend a lot, big chunk of budget. I think AI is now able to enhance and speed up the turnaround time for a lot of creative work. That's where we're seeing some creative users or AI users being deployed into creative teams. But I think it certainly wasn't me that said this, and I don't know who said it, but I don't think people need to worry about the robots taking over their jobs. I think they need to worry about the people who know how to use the robots taking over, using their jobs. And I think that's the key thing. If you want to stay active in the market, if you want to be a candidate that's going to be looked at, perhaps put at the top of the pecking order, it's going to be your ability to use the latest tools and technology, okay? And I'm not just talking about copywriting skills, because if anything, I've seen our data in our business across the Middle East and Asia, that actually genuine writing skills, the need for them has actually gone up, not down. And most people would have thought they'd have gone the other way with the introduction of AI, but that's not been the case. But I do think you need to understand what tools and technologies can enhance your job. And if you have a good understanding of that, that makes you a much more attractive candidate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think I'd just add, I think what we'll see, and we're probably already seeing it, is a pushback rather than an embrace to AI at the moment, and that will probably come full circle. It reminds me of when we went through COVID, and I work with a company that works in office space real estate, grade A office spaces. And what you thought was going to happen post-COVID was that we need much less office space. We're going to have a work from home policy. We're going to have flexible working coming in, less need for that. Not at all. What actually you see now, and I think it was touched on right at the start, is people now desiring face-to-face communication and contact and networking and being in and around colleagues and seeing the benefits of being able to get in a room together, brainstorm and work together. And what you also saw was more office space, because people want to be more spread out. They want a different kind of look to their office. They want breakout rooms, chill out rooms. So it was designed in a different way. I think that will replicate a little bit with AI as well, which is like, oh, wow, here's this cool new technology. Then it will be, why am I having a conversation with a robot? I want human interaction and human connection. And then I think that will really start to come back again. Please don't put an AI WhatsApp chatbot on your website right now, because I want to get on the phone and I want to talk to a human, to have confidence that I'm understood, that something's going to be responded to, that I'm going to get a human connection. I think AI will continue to get better, and the lines between knowing whether you're really talking to a human or a robot or a human-generated response through a robot will become more and more blurred as we go forward, and this becomes more and more advanced. But I think there will be some pushback, and it will be, I want human connection. I want that eye contact. I want that handshake. I want to be able to look you in the eye when I'm talking and meeting with you.
Really interesting. So that brings us to the end of our AI section. Some really great insights from everyone there on what's happening with AI, and some really thought-provoking stuff about what we might see in the future as well. So before we move on to our talent section, I'm just going to pass over to Laura, because I can see that we have quite a lot of comments and questions around AI. So before we move on to our talent section, let's go through some of those.
Yeah, so had to be quite selective on the questions because we've had so many, and any that I feel were answered after those questions came through, we might not circle back to. But some of the questions that absolutely, haven't been answered, I'm going to just run through. I'm going to ask you individually a question. If you feel like chipping in, feel free. My first question is for Libina on Margie. How is Margie analysing huge data sets without plagiarism or copying from original sources?
Very good question. Like I said, we are in the process of building it. So we're trying and testing, trying to make sure that, listen, when you talk about data, even when you go to a research company, you're doing a research yourself, you tend to look up, right? You do a research, you go read about the clients, about what has happened, the previous press releases, etc. So at some point, you are actually gathering data from everywhere. That doesn't mean we're copying, we're gathering information. But what happens is that when we do it as people, as human beings, sometimes it takes time for us to gather everything, put together in a statistics, analyze the whole something and then present it. What Margie does, it makes our lives easier. It tries to pick information from different sources, and it sends us an analysis where you can't just simply blindly use that for your content. You really have to sit through it, understand, see if this is exactly what your client needs. So I wouldn't say that we're copying information. We're trying to gather information, gather details from everywhere possible, so we're able to put them together and then come up with a proper strategy for the client. That's how we use Margie, sorry, not Margie. And I think this is one of the most effective tools that sort of reduces the time that you take to analyze something. So when you give it to Margie, it pulls up data, gives you the data set. Now you decide on what you want to do. You can't completely rely. You need a human being to operate there again, to understand what the briefing was about and how do you present this or how do you produce a strategy to your client in the most effective way, knowing your client's expectations.
Thank you, Libina. Great explanation on Margie. I think I want a Margie. Now, John, this one's for you. Do you have any tips about getting attention from publications when sharing creative work?
Oh, wow, creating impact. You've got to have something to say. You've got to be able to in-house to be able to push back to your business and not write advertorial content that feels great for you as a company to go out and say, aren't we great? Here's the latest thing that we're doing, and do it as a one-way advertorial and expect to get something in return. I think relationships and networks help, but you've got to have a story, and it's got to be a story. It can't just be a piece of information. You know, the guys will keep telling me that journalists absolutely love numbers and statistics, so get a number in the headline. Yeah, definitely true, but there's got to be something behind that will appeal not just to the journalist that you're using as the gateway out to your audience, but to your audience itself. It's got to pass the why would I give a test to be able to be sure that it gets through. Look at the stuff that you scroll past every single day, because it just feels like somebody else pushing out a narrative to you. If you're not going to respond to it, if it's not going to interest you at all, you've got to be brave enough to say, stop, we need to throw this in the bin, and we need to think of this from the other way. How is my audience going to respond to this, and how can I have a conversation with them about it?
Okay, great answer, John. Thank you. My last question, because we are short on time and we'll hopefully have some time to get back to some more questions at the end. This one's for you, Justin. Somebody commented that it was good to hear you talk about the growth of in demand for in-house creative studios. So what do you think's driving that? Is it cost efficiency or a belief that in-housing delivers better results?
Okay, so that's an interesting point. When I've worked on this in the past, when I've worked with, I mean, I've got the grey hair to show it now, I suppose, for it. When I've been briefed, it's often been initially a cost-saving exercise and a control exercise. So a business wants to control the narrative and wants to save money on agency spend. That's typically what drives a decision. Interestingly, though, again, I've seen businesses over time build in-house functions and then let them go, move to agency, rebuild, let them go. And some companies I know are on like their third wave. It really depends on who's running the ship and what they tend to favor. Okay. At the moment, I think my gut is telling me that costs and AI are driving that narrative.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the main driver is the cost. Right, I'm going to hand back to Sarah. We're going to come back to some more questions at the end, like I mentioned earlier. But let's go through the last section of our webinar today.
Great, thanks, Laura. So our final section of the webinar today is on talent. So Justin mentioned earlier that we're seeing a massive amount of applications, especially coming into our Dubai office at the moment, of people who are looking for a new job or looking to move here. So with Dubai in mind, it's very tough to kind of stand out because there's so many applications. What advice would you give to a candidate who's looking to make the move here or find their next opportunity? Justin, I'll come to you first.
I sort of touched on it earlier, and look, I think anyone that's moving to the market probably doesn't, particularly they're new to the market, probably doesn't realise the volume of applications that most people get. And I'm not just talking about the recruiters. I'm sure John gets bombarded by people. I think we all get hit by people that want to come out here. And I think the key to getting noticed is to personalise. I'm just still staggered by the amount of people that just, that send you emails, that clearly don't know who they're sending something to, that clearly haven't taken the time to read or prepare for it. If you really want to make an impact, like you've got to tailor your approach. You've got to make sure what's going to make you stand out from the next person. If it's a particular job and you're not here, it's going to be your skill set, it's going to be your background, it's going to be if you've got particular industry knowledge and in depth, you've got to highlight that very quickly. If you're in region, you've got to play on those strengths and what you've worked on, who you know. You've got to try and use your network. You've got to try it. And if you don't have a network, you've got to go to places where your network might be. There are so many events. There's so many activities that go on in Dubai. I mean, for example, we're doing this webinar now, right? If I was looking to get a job in PR and communications, what a great opportunity to get your eyeballs in front of 3 key players, in the PR and comms market. There's plenty of opportunities out there. It's people who've got to be proactive and put themselves there. And the ones that do actually get, they actually get land a job, because it's a real skill set finding the right job. The ones that just sit there and machine gun apply and carte blanche emails, they inevitably spend a long time searching for that right job. So you've got to really put the effort in, is what I'm saying.
Libina, John, do you have anything that you want to add on to that?
I'd love to add. I think in Dubai, the PR market is incredibly vibrant, but also highly competitive, right? Now, to truly stand out, I think you sort of need a mix of sharp technical skills and a deep cultural understanding. I think this is something that I would really expect a candidate to have. And I think at APCO, we're constantly always on lookout for individuals who aren't just skilled, but also as somebody who's able to bring fresh perspectives. And that's what we sort of look out for. And I think Justin mentioned this towards the beginning of the call. I think networking plays absolutely critical role here. As he mentioned earlier, Dubai is a place where you can actually build connections, and connections are just as important as your credentials. So building a strong, genuine relationships with the industry leads, or, it can actually make a huge difference. And like you mentioned, there's so many events. Get out there, talk to people, connect with people, stay in touch with them. LinkedIn is one of the one of the nicest places where you can actually connect with people, network, talk to them, stay in touch. We've been in touch with so many candidates. We keep them warm, we connect with them, we put them on our pipeline. So building connections, I think, is also one of the strongest play that you could do to make sure that you get into the industry, or help you, it'd be easier for you to sort of get a job.
Yeah, let me just add on this connections thing. You've got to have a personality. We are not appointing engineers or finance guys that are great with, spreadsheets and Excel. We work in the relationships business. That's what we do. So you often find now that your base level, I've got a degree in this, a master's in this, BA honors in that, is your baseline. That's your foundation. After that, the networking is fine, but you've got to have a view. You've got to have a personality. You've got to be interested in things. So if you're not reading the press, if you're not interested in the latest industry podcasts, not just your own industry, marketing and comms, I'm talking about, have you got a view on the UAE? Do you know what's going on in the Middle East? Are you following the US presidential elections? Whatever it happens to be, you've got to have an interest in news agenda, news writing, news storytelling, great creative. If you're not sharing around with your colleagues a great campaign that you saw from Dove or from KFC or from whoever it happens to be, you're really going to miss out. You've really got to have a view and a personality, because we're in the relationships business.
Can I have to add that this is something I've seen now, again, because I've been here a while. The most likable people that I've worked with have often turned into the most successful people. And the people that hiring managers want in their team are often those soft skills that people overlook. They're the likability, the fact that person brings a great personality, it smiles a lot, it's fun. The stuff that you hear about with people, they're always the ones that get hired. They're always the ones that are in demand. So don't underestimate the value of being likable, bringing a strong personality and a smile to the table. It's so true about relationships.
There you go. Big piece of advice from our panel: let your personality shine through, be your authentic self when you're looking for a new job. Right, I think we're all in a lot of agreement that Dubai seems to be the place to be for a lot of people at the moment, and we've got just absolutely tons of people that want to move to Dubai. But I just want to move the conversation to Saudi for a second. How exciting an opportunity is Saudi Arabia for PR and comms talent? We'll start with you on this one, John.
I mean, it's been a while since I've spent significant time in the kingdom a few years ago, but wow, did I feel old. And I'm in my mid-40s. There is this just hotbed of local talent, which is really coming through. And I mean 18, 19, 20-year-old talent, particularly females, coming into the industry who are driven by wanting to have a huge impact for their nation and want to celebrate that and want to be able to share that. And they are on social media channels I've never even heard of, let alone have a clue about how to work. I mean, really strong work ethic, really passionate and committed about wanting to add value over there. There's been huge changes. I mean, the place moves so fast. When you turn up and you arrive in Riyadh Airport, compared to the 3 months earlier when you were there, you already see it as you're going through passport control, the way it's opened up, the way they welcome you, the way it's modernized. It is moving at an unbelievable pace. But it's been, like I say, it's been 2 or 3 years since I've spent significant time in the kingdom. But obviously from the outside looking in, that place is very, very vibrant at the moment. While some of the projects have been slowed back, scaled back to some degree, I mean, it's all relative, right? I mean, they're still moving at pace on multi-billion-dollar projects that are the envy of many nations more, elsewhere. And I think if you haven't got a view on Saudi, if you haven't been in and seen what's going on there, I think you're really missing out. And it's young, often female, highly engaged, local talent that want to have an impact for their nation.
Yeah. It's a different ball game though, John, in Saudi. I think recruiting for recruiting in Saudi is Dubai is very much an international market. Most people, most offices that you go into in Dubai you've got multiple different nationalities. It's a very multicultural, vibrant place. In Saudi, it's a very localized market, incredibly exciting, incredibly dynamic, and full of people passionate, as John said, passionate about the vision for their country and really want to work as hard as they can to help take their country there, which is really exciting. But what I will say is, for a lot of established businesses that are trying to grow there, they're trying to focus their hiring a lot on skill-based hiring. And the reality is the country has transformed so quickly that there isn't a vast pool of talent, particularly with 5+ years right now. So businesses can't really grow the way they have in Dubai. So what I'm seeing happen now is you're hiring a lot of juniors, you're hiring some senior expats in, but that middle section is quite tough to hire in. It's very demanding in as well. So I'd say the talent war is fierce in Saudi particularly for the localized market. And I would say we especially feel it in that mid to senior level, but particularly for agencies, because agencies as well have had they've been probably the victims of their own success in some ways, is that a lot of the government entities have seen the key players that have operated within their agencies, and they pluck them out with salaries which are very hard to compete with. So it's a market where the whole talent landscape is incredibly competitive. Salaries are going up. For locals especially, it's incredibly they're in demand. I'm sure they're getting calls from recruiters all the time. For expats coming in, just a kind of a heads up to people who want to go into Saudi, Most businesses have a quota that they're allowed to play with when it comes to foreign nationals and locals. And it's quite hard sometimes to judge when they're going to be allowed a foreign quota or not. So it can take some time, depending on the license of the business. It can take some time for an international person to be hired in Saudi. So it's quite a localized market right now.
And Libina, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes. Like we said, Saudi Arabia is going through incredible transformation, and it's largely driven by its vision for 2030, right? The goals. So it's exciting time for the country, and it's actually opening doors for wider opportunities for consultants like us to sort of go in and see what sort of work can you do. There's so much work. It's diversifying into different sectors like entertainment. You have tourism, you have tech. So for us in PR and comms, I think this shift is creating amazing opportunity to really influence and shape how Saudi Arabia is seen globally. I mean, APCO has worked on some of the amazing projects with Saudi back in 2018, 2019, and even today. And I'm so proud to be associated with some of these projects that is actually making history. So if you're really interested to sort of make history, be with an organization that is driving it, I think Saudi is definitely the place for it. And I agree that localization is a bit higher, but we do have opportunities for expats as well. I mean, of course, with localization, they have specific positions that they say that has to be of Saudi local. But other than that, I think PR consultants, we can sort of accommodate, again, depending on the level that you are at with Saudiization there. But yes, there are incredible opportunities in Saudi.
Thanks. Just before we move on, I'm aware that we are running a little bit late. So if anyone does need to drop off, we will have the recording and we'll send that to you after. We've got a couple more questions for the panel, and then we'll come to any questions that you've got for them. We're about 5 to 10 minutes over our original time. So if you do need to drop off, that's absolutely fine. You'll get the recording afterwards. So our second to last question that I just want to get a quick viewpoint from the panel on is, how well are those Middle Eastern hubs that we spoke about competing with the likes of London, New York, when it comes to attracting that top level in high demand PR and communications talent? Justin, we'll start with you.
I would say that Middle East PR has been phenomenal. Like, the amount of people that want to move to the UAE or Saudi right now is the highest I've ever known it. We've got demand coming in from New York, which typically, if I'm honest with you, the USA wasn't really an inbound market for us in the UAE or the Saudi for quite some time. Typically it was mostly Europe, I'd say Canada, in North America, there's been demand, and Australia. But we're now seeing people want to come from the USA. We're looking at a whole ton of people want to come from the UK and Europe. I'm going to put inflation, cost of living and economic situations behind why a lot of people's motivations are. Also, the sheer attractiveness of what's going on here. I think it's phenomenal. People want to be part of the story. People want to have a taste for what's going on here. And it is probably the most exciting region in the world right now.
Hear, hear. It's easy to say, sitting here for last week. It's really interesting to hear from Justin that there's increased interest coming over from the US. Often with the federal tax and things in the US, it can still be quite restrictive to step outside the boundaries of that. So that's really interesting. I go one step further. I say I'm not sure we're competing anymore with London and New York, and I'd like to think that we're leading in many areas. At its most basic level, you look at the companies and the organizations that are going over to the Cannes Lions every year and picking up huge international-based recognition for some of the creative marketing work that's being done here is just testament to that. And I just think when you've got a hotbed of 200 different nationalities in an environment which is business-friendly, modern, welcoming, all of the governance, infrastructure, legal, healthcare, education is all in place here, particularly in the UAE, but increasingly in the wider Middle East region. 8 hours from whatever, 2/3 of the world's population. It's a hugely attractive proposition at the moment. And I think the government, particularly here in Dubai, have made huge strides in making it very, very easy to come here and set up business. Justin, you did it, probably took you half an hour. Try go and register a company in London and go to Companies House and tax, you know, it could take you months to do it. And I think that ease of doing business and the infrastructure that's in place makes it a very attractive place, combined with great talent that's doing great work.
I fully agree with you, John. I think Middle East, particularly Dubai and Riyadh right now, is really stepping up the game when it comes to attracting world-class PR comms talent, I would say. Not just moving new hires completely from a different country to Dubai. I think we've been successful in bringing people, transferring people from the US and UK to move and work on projects in Saudi and UAE in particular. I think about the tax-free salaries and high standard of living, but it's also the projects that people are really attracted to work on is what pulls them here. I think APCO alone, I think we've seen particularly, I think close to 20% increase in how we've sort of moved people from different offices to work on secondments, be it temporary or transfers in general. So I think we are able to attract a lot of people, and people are interested to know what's happening in the region, and particularly because they really want to be part of these huge projects that are truly transformational, something that people are going to remember tomorrow. Basically creating history. So they'd love to be part of that. So yes, I agree.
Perfect, thank you. And last question that I have for you before we move on to the questions that we have in our chat. Is there any skills gaps within the PR and comm space in the Middle East that anyone has noticed? Justin, come to you first.
The thing that comes up time and time again, okay, that's in demand is really good Arabic writing skills. Okay, this is something that I'd say number one is really solid Arabic writing skills, and number two, I'd say is really great, fantastic English writing skills. Demand for great writers is at a premium, and it always feels like our customers, be those corporates or agencies or governments, are always looking for great writers, which is, and more so than ever in the world of AI, this skill set's in demand. So, and if I just want to add, I think the prominence of Saudi in the market now and good Arabic writing skills is driving a lot of that as well. So I would say writing skills is the one where I think people can really look at.
John, how about yourself?
Brilliant answer. And just in that, I mean, interesting, we've just been talking about AI and how, writing, I can just say, write me a thank you email to Justin and the team for being on this session this afternoon. I'll have 300 words in 30 seconds, but really interesting that people want authentic writing skills that people can connect to. And I think that's a skill set that I think you can't replicate very easily through this robotic style that's being generated. Nothing too much. I'll just reiterate more on the soft skills. Again, I'm more obsessed with that, which is this ability to be engaged, to be across what's happening in the world, to have a viewpoint, to follow what's going on, step outside your bubble and get a rounded view and opinion, so that a lot of what we have to do, particularly in-house, is advice. Being the voice of the customer. Often difficult times in meetings where you're not just saying, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, but you've got to bring in an opinion from the outside. What does your customer and your stakeholder, what are they feeling? What's their sentiment? You only get that by being really rounded and getting an external view of what's going on. So it's not so much, I need this skill set as a bullet point on my CV, but I think, and I do quite a bit of recruitment, when you get the people in, those that you can connect to where they've got that rounder view of what's going on is just putting in huge demand. You go right to the top of the list.
I think in addition to that, I've also noticed gap in terms of strategic thinking and critical thinking skills, which is so important at this time, especially when you are dealing with crisis. I think we really need people who can think strategically, who can start being trusted advisors to our client. I think this is one of the most skill gap that I've noticed in the past 12 months at least.
Perfect. Great. Well, that's all the questions that I've got for our panel. So I'm going to hand over to Laura, and she's going to go through the questions that we have in the chat.
Great, thanks, Sarah. John, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the chat, but you've got you've got quite a fan in the audience.
Yeah, Mohammed needs to come see me.
So I'm going to start with questions for you, John. We've got some pretty specific ones, actually. First of all, how would a 41-year-old start a career in PR? 20 years in the UAE, Arabic speaker and writer, niche market knowledge. What would your advice be?
Quit, you're far too old. Over 40s in the comms industry. Honestly, I'm 4 years ahead of you, and I'm put to shame all the time, because honestly, this is a young person's game, and trying to keep up with exactly what's going on with the latest tech to make sure that you know where the communication channels are for your specific audience is key. I do joke, because I think Libina touched on a really serious point earlier on, that strategic expertise and ability. And if you're entering your 5th decade, then hopefully you've got quite a bit of experience to bring to the table, and that strategic insight, that maturity and experience that does, Justin and I can tell you, comes with a little bit of age, that bit more pragmatism, that bit more openness and self-reflection that you get as you get into our middle years, brings in so much value. So yes, you've got this vibrancy, this energy that comes from those in their early 20s who are up to date with what's going on in the industry, but play into your strengths of that. You've got experience, you've been doing something for 20, 25 years. Bring that to the table. And I think, as Justin said, that mid to senior level positions are the hardest to fill, because you've got to move up in your conversations about your strategic thinking, the way you look at things and how you position it.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you, John, here. Now, this isn't me choosing you, by the way. This question was directed at you. So can John give some examples of how crisis comms as a skill set is needed in the market? Is there a gap?
I think that probably is a skill set I should have mentioned, Natasha, earlier on. But I think that the issue with crisis comms at the moment is that this might be the biggest thing that I'll say is criticism of the industry here in the Middle East. I'm a huge fan, huge brand ambassador for what happens with the comms industry in this region, but crisis comms does sort of concern me a little bit. I still think there's a feeling from businesses of waiting and being reactive. And obviously, the most important thing with crisis comms is preparedness and proactivity and being positioned and ready to go. So I do think that is a skill set that is needed, but I don't think Justin is getting calls from people saying, I need crisis comms experts. And I think there's an education side of things that needs to be done with businesses first on the importance of crisis comms, because it's always a money saving. It's the thing that comes after the fact. But we all know, if you're not ready, it's the companies that are not ready that get hit the hardest in a crisis. So I think before I've got a senior crisis communications manager in my in-house team, there's some education that needs to go on, perhaps in the region a little bit more, to understand the importance of crisis comms.
Okay, well, if you want to do a webinar on the importance of crisis comms, I'm there, John. I'm down for learning about that. Okay, I'm gonna segue to Libina on this one. You mentioned earlier using Copilot and not really using ChatGPT. And somebody asked, what are some of the best AI tools to use for communications, for writing, creativity? Now, I know you've got your Margie. So I'll start with you, but as always, John and Justin, if you want to chip in with your best tools, that's absolutely fine as well.
I think I know a lot of people that use ChatGPT and Copilot in particular, we know that they're not safe. Copilot, to an extent, some of them say, well, it's Microsoft, so, well, I think it should be okay. But honestly, I wouldn't do that. And I think I would still stick to your company's in-house product, which is well designed, well thought on, and introduced. So if you're just simply looking at, doing a bit of research, collecting a little bit of information, you still can't do it on ChatGPT and Copilot. But if you're really working on some of the most critical, let's say, tasks that are related to your clients, you are holding their information. And for that, it's best to stick to your company's in-house product. Now, luckily, APCO has one. I'm not sure if all of the companies have it. We are getting there. We're getting to a place where we can and are able to sort of, put together a software for people to use it, to be more efficient, to use it as an enabler and help them get the work done a bit easy. So they're able to sit down and brainstorm with those analyses as opposed to wasting time in just collecting database. But yeah, that would be my take on it. Honestly, I am not a technical person. I'm not a technology person. So I wouldn't be able to advise, but I would definitely advise do not use ChatGPT on things that are very, very sensitive because they're not safe.
Okay, great. Thank you. Justin, John, have you got any AI tools to add to the what should be used list or what you'd recommend?
Not from me. Libina explained it very well. I think not safe perhaps goes a bit too far. They're relatively safe, but certainly for confidential company-based information, follow guidance of the organization. If you don't have guidance from an organization, put your hand up and go and start it, and don't just passively wait for it to be handed down to you from the top. Take a leadership position. If you've got enterprise solutions that are created, then generally these things can be okay. But yeah, just be a little careful and be transparent, open and honest about your use and want to use of this. Don't hide it away on tab number 8 of your browser and close it down when your boss walks in. You need to be talking about this and having the conversation inside the organization.
Hey, thank you so much. Justin, all good on that one?
All good on that one. The only AI tool I've been using recently, and again, it's probably because of my age, is this deathclock.ai. If anyone wants to, when they're going to pop their clogs, go to that one. That's an interesting and insightful tool.
I still need to do that. I haven't done that yet. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question because I am very aware that we've gone way over timing. Now, Justin, I'm going to ask you this one. We had a very direct and specific question again. What about workplace flexibility? It's something that we've spoken about in the past. This lady is a mother of 2 small children and she had to leave her full-time PR job as there was no flexibility. She wants to know if things have changed in the past few years.
I would say from my viewpoint, I'm seeing the agencies really embrace and adopt hybrid work culture. They're seeing it as a real competitive edge now, and they're able to pull in some great talent, not just from a flexible basis, even looking at it from a geographical perspective as well. which I think is really smart. So I think that whole flexible work culture is very much, I think if you want to get great talent, particularly in agency world, which is hyper competitive, and if you want to try and keep your salaries, leverage that against salary increase, it's a really good weapon to use. So I think it's something that more and more companies should adopt. I have to say though, I'm seeing it more and more in Dubai. Elsewhere, it still feels like it hasn't really arrived so much. And we've got quite a few customers in Abu Dhabi, Saudi, and Qatar. The hybrid flexible work culture there, if you're in that market and you're not embracing it, it's a great way to stand out because not many companies seem to. So I think when you compare, I think it's probably a difference to say a London and New York, as we touched on earlier, to a Gulf region. I think they've really embraced it. Some would argue they've gone too far into it. Here, I think perhaps they haven't embraced it enough. I think there's a middle ground to be had. We've got quite a few customers actually who do 2 or 3 days in the office. And they seem to really, really attract great talent with that strategy, and people really buy into that as well. So I think it's a great weapon to use.
Justin, just to follow up, if I can, what do you see on part-time work? a few years ago, it was almost impossible to even create visas for part-time work.
Yep.
But particularly here in Dubai, it seems it's opened up a bit more. Are you seeing roles for part-time?
I'm seeing a demand, but I'm not seeing the supply. So there is greater visa opportunities to come in and do freelance work, but I still think there's a reliance on the few people that have set themselves up as free zone entities and then pitch themselves out. There is at the moment, you can pull someone in. There is a visa, and I can't remember the name of it now, but you can pull someone in, say, from another market to come in for 3 to 6 months on a working visa. That's quite attractive in the winter months when people want to come here, and less attractive in the summer. But I don't think there is enough supply here at the moment to rival another market when it comes to contract work. Isn't really in existence here still. It's not.
Okay. Thank you so much, panelists, for answering those questions so brilliantly. There are loads more, but unfortunately we are out of time. So I'm going to pass back to Sarah, who's going to go through the best way to contact you guys and keep throwing questions at you.
Thanks, Laura, for asking all of those questions to our panel. If people do want to connect with each of you, what's the best way to keep in touch, to follow along with what you guys are doing? I'm guessing LinkedIn's probably quite a good way to do it. But over to you guys to kind of give as much information as you want.
Guys, John?
LinkedIn, but do what Justin says earlier. I get quite a few messages through LinkedIn. Please, can I come in and show you my latest company or whatever? Have impact stand out, because I get quite a few, which is probably about 5% of the amount that Justin gets to his LinkedIn messaging, I'm absolutely certain. But nonetheless, I do communicate there, but try and pop out a little bit so that I can see you. And I'll make a point over the next 2 or 3 days of keeping an eye on LinkedIn messages in particular, to reach out and engage with them there. I'm happy to give as much time as I can.
Libina?
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having us today. It's been a pleasure. People can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active. So if you do want to reach out and if you have further questions, I'm more than happy to share my email address on LinkedIn if you text me there. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Justin, our resident LinkedIn expert.
Yeah, LinkedIn's a great way to get in touch with me, but if you want to get my attention, then you have to put webinar in the title.
That's the way. You should be a comms guy. That will work.
That means you've watched everything and you understand what we said. And I will reply to anyone that says webinar in the title.
There you go. If you want to get in front of these 3 people, use webinar in the title of your message. That's going to help you stand out from the crowd because you came to the webinar today. Perfect. Right. Well, I just want to say a massive thank you to you all for your insights and your time today. It's been really interesting to hear all of your viewpoints. We will have a recording of today's session, which will be available afterwards, and we'll email that out to everyone. But thanks again to our panel, and we'll see everyone on the next one.
Thanks,
it was great fun.
Everyone.